Hi, everybody. We're going to give, we said we start at 12:15, and of course, we want to give people a few minutes to click the download, to get in, to answer all the questions. So we'll actually start in 1 or 2 minutes, just to let people join as they do. I do, though, as we sit here and look at a slide, I do want to remind everybody, one, that this will be quick, but it's not gonna be that quick. It's not, it's not gonna be 5 to 10 minutes. And that is part of our ongoing Lunch and Learn series that we've been doing for a couple of years now. Since we can't actually provide you lunch, we hope that you have your own lunch as you arrive. We are providing lunch to others. So if at the end of this, I will put up a survey link, and basically for everybody who fills out the survey, we then make donations to a food-based charity to help those who are in need. So you learn somebody else's lunches, and that's how we do it here at Arkus. We'd love feedback on that too at the very end, so you can read that. Last year, I think we ended up feeding a lot of people doing this. So the more people who fill out the survey, I know it just takes a minute, but it will help somebody else. All right, well, with that, since we only have 45 minutes and we are gonna lunch, let's get started with presentation today. I am going to do a quick guide to going paperless. So I will throw up an agenda slide and talk to it. First, I'll talk a little bit about me and why. Why are you listening to me talk about paperless? Who are you and what do you look like? So we'll do that. And then I'm going to go through talking about some of the paper, usage and some of the good and the bad of what we're seeing now. And then we're going to go through the benefits. What are the benefits of going paperless? What does that mean and how to do it? And then I'm trying to leave this, I like to make my Lunch and Learns very functional, very like you can leave with more information and things to go do, not just hear me talk for 30, 45 minutes. So I'm gonna try to leave you with lots of resources. Software you can use, hardware you can use, concepts you can use, things you can bring to your personal life or your organization. This is gonna try to encompass both of those things. And then at the very end, we'll have question and answers. We will also do, there's a questioning on the side, which you can fill out at any time if you want, although I would assume you wait until I might answer the question. And then we can do that. I'll answer those questions at the end. Other than that, we will then send out the survey and we will be good. So let's get into it. Just a little introductions. All these things are true, or some group of them. But from my paperless world, I actually have been paperless personally for a long, long time. I went back and looked, and it is over 20 years being paperless, right? Of being in a paperless world. And I tell a little bit of the story of why, because I used to work for a very, very large, actually one of the largest companies in the world at the time, organization, and we had it was an organization where they liked to consume paper. There were printers everywhere, literally printers all around the office just printing. Someone just print reams of paper. I remember I'd come see a stack of printed paper and it'd all be like test results or code. And we had this thing where we'd go into we'd go into a meeting, maybe you've seen this. Hopefully the practice is not as big now. We go in and if they were going to present something like this, for example, they would have a printed deck, right? So they'd take the PowerPoint presentation and they would print it out, and they print out one per person. Not only did someone have to go do that work, but then of course print it and bring it into the meeting, and we would sit there and then we'd all, slowly go through the presentation, great. And at the end, we just dump it on the side or maybe put it in the recycling bin. And it was I couldn't stand it. It actually really bothered me. But it was funny because we were merged with another bigger company at the time, and we felt ourselves so good because ours were just black and white. When this other company came in to do presentations with us, of course, they came in full color and with binders, and of course, those things were even more wasteful. So we felt good about it because we're not wasting that much. We're not even using color ink. Anyway, when I went on to help build Arkus and with my partners, one of the things we said was like, we don't want to create a paperless world, or we want to go into a paperless world. We want to sort of embrace that. And in so much so that the printer that we had from the beginning, from going from like 3 people to 60 people, the only printer we've ever had actually was one of the business partners' dad's old printer. It's probably a 10-year-old printer. And when we moved offices once, we forgot to even like reconnect it up. Like we didn't even connect it for 3 months. We didn't miss it. Last couple years ago, we decided to go really fully paperless, and we don't do anything with paper anymore. No business cards, no thank you notes, no all interviews, everything is fully digital. So I'll talk about that a little bit. But it's been a journey and something that I'm kind of proud of. I like it. So let's start off with a quick poll. I'm actually gonna send the poll out this way. Look, like from your organization, this should, oh, let's see, launch poll, good. Now I know what I'm doing. Great, this should pop up in front of you. You're allowed to choose, like, do you consider you or your organization paperless today? Like, obviously you're here to learn a little bit, but like, do you actually consider yourself, your organization? I'm seeing votes come in. I love this. This is great. Okay, we're using our new poll feature here. Thank you. Okay, great. So it's about 80-20. I'm gonna, now I have to close. I think I have to close the poll. Close the poll. Thank you. So 20% of you said yes. That might be an Arky or two on the call, and then 80% said no. So thank you. That's great. Thanks for voting. So I think a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about today, again, hopefully is very actionable, stuff that you can put into practice and you can do. One of the things I'm going to talk about is it doesn't have to be like a cliff that you fall off of. You know, it can be a journey to go things. So let's talk about some numbers though, kind of the why behind it. I like to do this when I present things. You know, why do we talk about this? So I'm going to throw up some numbers here. So 44.23%, which is the people on the planet who use paper every single day. Like, we're just using it every single day. And really what this comes is it's getting worse. We actually use more paper now than we did. You would think, like, with all the digitalization of everything, you would use less, but no, we're actually using more. So there's a big number in red, so probably not a good number, $8 billion. What do you think, $8 billion? Well, that represents the amount that is wasted annually by US businesses on paper, right? And I'll get to some ways that you can even think of this as direct numbers, and there's a lot of indirect costs of paper. What's 10,000? Another big number. That's sheets of paper average employee uses a year. That's a lot. That's a lot in the States. I think these are like a couple years old, so it's gone up from there. 80 bucks. It seems like a nice $80. What's $80? Well, it's $8 you can save per employee if you go paperless. So there are some real cost savings here. Not only, and we'll talk about all the great reasons, but cost is a big one, and there are ways to save a lot of money. 67%. This one's an interesting one. This is employees who want to work for social good. So basically, when even in your hiring practices, and we do this, we say we're a paperless company, people want to work for companies that are doing social good. So even having processes and things that you bring into your company helps with recruiting. We all know recruiting is a cost, especially in the current marketplace. And then 23 and 61, two numbers, don't combine them. That's not and. This is actually the major data breaches and minor data breaches, and I don't know how to classify those. They all seem pretty big to me, but involve paper. And one thing we're going to talk about too a little bit is that paper, while we think of it, you know, my uncle is very protective of his paper, thinking it's very, that it's more secure, but the fact of the matter is it isn't. It actually is worse. And a lot of the fraud that happens in the United States happens through paper and statements and things like that. So. All right, so let's talk about some benefits of getting. What are the top 6 benefits? Everybody likes a list. I like to do a list. So let's talk about first and foremost is organization, right? It is much easier to deal with digital things than it is to go running around after paper. You know, the documents that get handed from person to person and get left, and there's another copy of it, right? Having one copy of something, having it digitally stored, and being able to get to it is really important. Also, search. You know, I used to work on a search engine back in the company 20 years ago. You know, search has gotten really good. Like, you can find things very quickly in search. So being able to get the things, don't think of it as like, yes, it increases productivity of your employees, and ultimately, the less time they spend trying to find some document or get it or print it and go to the printer and come back and do it, the better, right? So for example, at Arkus here, we have 1.13 terabytes of information over 12 years. This is documents, PDFs, and all that. And you can find things very, very quickly. Like, literally, you can find things in our system really quickly. Get to it with search. Also, when you're scanning in stuff, if you use OCR, which is optical character recognition, you can get the data within the words then become searchable. So you can really find things quickly. And another story, I worked at a company, the same company that liked to burn a lot of paper. There was someone on the floor who was maybe, let's call him a little old-fashioned. And one day he walks into my office and hands me a piece of paper. And I was like, oh, thank you. I won't use names, although I know some on the call know the story. And I said, oh, what is this? And he hands me this piece of paper, and he goes, oh, this is this great email that I want you to have. And hand me the piece of paper. And then I saw he had a stack of the pieces of paper, and then I saw him go out and hand one to another person and hand one to another person. So yeah, he took an email that he could have quickly just forwarded, and he printed it out, and then he hand delivered it around the office, and my head exploded. All right, so that brings me to easier collaboration, right? The thing about paper, you think about even the sending of documents, even digitally to 10 different people, like collaboration is easier if you have one version to work on, right? I'm sure you started to use things like Google Drive and things like that, or even, you know, OneBox, and having one version of things and being able to edit it in real time and see who else is editing and what they're doing. You know, no more having to like save a copy, save it to your drive, save that copy, print that version out, take your notes, put it back, right? It's much, much easier to collaborate on that. You know, we noticed that like we don't really ever send documents around the organization because we collaborate them on electronically, so you don't have to get that. And there's all sorts of things that happen when you're not sending documents even by email and printing them out, right? That you get out of it. So collaborating, real-time chat, you know, all stored in the cloud, it really, really helps. So again, more productivity, easier to get things done, easier to move things through the process. And I think that's the third one. Well, it is the third one, which is efficiency. Right? We know, because we know stats, like it's to get things through a process. And basically, what are you doing with this data, these documents, the Word documents, the PDFs, whatever they are? You're trying to get them through from point A to point B, whether it's get a document over to somebody else to sign or to agree to or to whatever. It's all part of the workflow, right? So we know that using digital and staying digital makes the efficiency better. There's stats out there, right, that is 21 times e-signatures make things 21 times faster to get signed. 21 times, if you've got your deal out there, don't you want to get signed faster, right? So moving to something like even e-delivery and an electronic signature can do that. And then even from the signatures, a separate study by the Bernstein group concluded that e-signatures reduce the average length of sales cycle by a factor of 8 times. So like, think of your sales cycle. Like, would you want to reduce by getting someone to sign something? So going digital also does that. When we implemented it, we were all sketchy about, like, we kind of did it a little bit at Arkus, and we started doing e-signature, and it has been a game changer. Things really do. We actually started measuring it, and they move through much, much faster through the system, right? Deals get done faster, people get things signed, NDAs get signed, everything's better if you do e-signature. So like, the workflow efficiency is a massive, massive thing to think about. And then, okay, 4, yes, you're like, how are we gonna get to 6? So 4, costs. I talked about the cost of paper, and I think everybody thinks about paper as the very, like, the reams of paper that you have. Okay, I have to buy paper. If I went paperless, I wouldn't have to buy that paper. But actually then go on and think about the impact of all the other pieces of paper. First of all, in order to have that paper, you need to store that paper somewhere. Okay, so there's a storage room stuffing, you know, head to toe in paper. Okay, well, you don't have to do that anymore. Then you've got cabinets that you keep the paper in. Then you have the printers that have to print. Then you have the energy that the printers use, which is getting more and more expensive. Then you have the ink and the ink cartridges, right? I mean, it goes on and on. Then you have all the things that have to support paper. The pens, the paper, the folders, the filofaxes, all this stuff goes on to support it. So it's not just the direct cost of like buying a ream of paper, but the cost of going paperless. I mean, and you reduce so many costs. So again, I showed you the $80 per user per month, or sorry, per year. But you think about a 400-person employee. I mean, that's like almost $32,000 in a year. So take your organization times 80, and I would go more like 100 if you think about all the other factors. That's a lot of money you can save, and you can save them, and you can put it into the software to help, you know, support the e-delivery and the electronicness of it. This is important, right? I don't know if a lot of people, maybe you're from a computer. I used to be the business information security officer at one of the firms I worked at, and this was important to us, right? Security. We used to talk about statements and e-delivery. In fact, we pushed e-delivery big for our clients. it was huge, and we would put we'd put a lot to get, as a brokerage firm, so we'd be telling all our clients, sign up for your delivery, sign up for your delivery. Well, sadly, we weren't doing it for mostly security and compliance. We were doing it mostly for the cost. We realized that if we could get any one person, especially with a brokerage account, you think about a lot of the statements are huge, like we could save $4 per statement per month by getting anyone to sign up for one of their accounts. So we pushed it huge, and we used to use as it security, because the fact of the matter is, a lot of the fraud that happens with statements happens at the mailbox. I mean, my mailbox is in a building and it is under lock and key, but most people's mailboxes are not. They're just sitting out there in the street, and people can go in and grab it. And then in that, what's in that information? Your name, your address, your account numbers. So statements, and having that so severe. So getting things out of it, and people think, well, they hacked the cloud. Yeah, it's not as easy as going to a mailbox and opening it up and grabbing a statement, trust me. So thinking about that, that was the data breaches that most of them come through paper. So your security and then your compliance around who can access that data, right? Paper, it sits on the desk, someone can come grab it, grab the printout of everybody's payroll. I mean, I've seen so many bad things happen with paper because you can't be as well protected. It doesn't auto lock itself. It doesn't have a password. It can, and by the way, you can take a picture of it, scan it, and then you can send it to 100 people. So really bad problems with that. So improve your security and compliance. And then lastly, well, you probably showed up for this to think about, that's why I made it last, was really talking about the environmental impact. Again, if you just took out all the pieces that we talked above, right, from the ink, from the paper itself, from the the storage of it, even moving the paper around from where it gets produced. I mean, it's just, the impact is huge. It's not as easy. It's not as simple as, oh, I chopped down a tree, because that tree then has to go someplace and be turned, on a car that produces whatever. It gets very deep, and it takes over 3 quarts of oil just to create laser printer and inkjet cartridge. So like, even from that standpoint, like, oil, that's not great. So there's so many things to think about in terms of the impact. And if you can make small changes, each one of those has a layering effect, kind of a ripple effect, just to reducing the environmental impact. So those are my 6 big benefits of going paperless. I think there's probably more, but that's as many as I had. So let's talk about how you go there. How do you get paperless? Probably why you showed up, right? This is something that, people are like, well, okay, great, but what do I do? How do I do this? And this is not going to be a guide, sort of say. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do. I'm going to give you some concepts and some ways to sort of approach this. So the first thing to do is to make an external commitment. And you're like, what's that mean? Well, that means to say aloud to either you're an organization or outside to the rest of the world that you're going to do this. Right? There are lots of organizations that are asking for this now, that are saying, hey, make a pledge, make it whatever. But by putting it out there, by saying in a news release or press release, or tweet it, or put it on LinkedIn, or put it on your website, right? Make an external commitment that you're going to do it. And it doesn't have to be like, we're 100% paperless tomorrow. It could be like, we're going to be 100% paperless by 2025 or 2030, or we're just going to reduce paper by 50% over the next couple of years. But by making the commitment to everybody else, it kind of gives you something to start with, right? So set a goal out there, but make it external and talk about it outwardly. Don't just hide it in the corner and say, oh, we're going to be paperless. No, really talk about it, and it makes it easier to stick to. Second thing is to go backwards. And this is really to look at what you have, what are you doing, right? This is to look at the data. Get some data on what you're doing today, right? Like I said, when we started going from non-electronic signature to electronic signature, we started measuring that. We said, oh, what's the time it takes? So then we could see if there's some success. If you have 15,000 printers, figure out how much they cost, how much ink you're using, where they're stored, how much storage costs, what's the square foot price of that stuff, how much you're buying, how many business cards. I talked again in the awful world of paper. I was at that company, which they were probably the #1 destroyer of paper. The company changed its name 5 times, and I changed my title 5 times over the 9 years, and I got a new set of business cards every single time. Every single time I get a new business card. So they changed their logo or the whatever, and then that would be a whole round, and that's everybody at the company would get that. I used to be like, but I don't even use these business cards. Literally, I gave away a few, but I never went through them. I always ended up throwing away. It's such a waste. So go and look at the stuff you're doing today and kind of capture that. because that's the piece you're going to start with. Like, so what are we doing today? Then build a roadmap. Then say, okay, how are we going to get there, right? So what are we going to do this year? What are we going to do next year? What are the small steps we can take to get there? It could be just like this year we're gonna adopt e-delivery, or we're gonna deliver our statements electronically. I can't imagine certain firms that are not doing that. Or we're only gonna accept ACHs this year. It's one of the things we've been trying to do, is get people not to pay us with checks, because the check has to be printed, put in the mail, put in a truck. The truck has to drive, I mean, it's a pain. Just ACH it, right? Put it directly. Or we're going to move to e-delivery this year. So having that roadmap of getting to that place, that external commitment, will help. Maybe it's like the year 4, you're removing all the printers and hopefully getting them recycled, or downsizing the storage to see all this the savings. Then you need to go forward, right? This is where you put the plan in place. And I know it seems kind of obvious. This is like basically project management 101, but going forward and making it available to people, showing it, talking about it internally, talking about it externally, these are things that make it easier for everybody to get on board with. And you're going to have to remind people, because it's natural. We do like it. There's things we get used to. My daughter actually said to me this morning, she goes, I like books because I like the feeling of flipping the pages. And because I'm me, I turned to her and I said, yeah, I'm sure people who like riding a horse to work every day really like the feeling of riding the horse. Like, but sometimes we have to make changes, and we have to change how we like and what types of things we like. All right, then you measure it, right? There are really good measurements for this. There are really ways you can go into calculators, you can go into, put in a spreadsheet, but you'll be able to measure your environmental impact that you're doing and tout it. It is part of the new world, which is to say that companies can do good, or organizations will do good. So tout it out there. Say you're doing this. Again, put it into your promotional materials that you don't print. Put it into your hiring practices. Put it into your onboarding for your new employees, showing them how they're going to do this, right? And then measure how it worked. What did you save? So when we stopped using business cards, what did we save when we did that? When we went to e-delivery or electronic signatures, or everything went electronic, what did we save, or how did it get better? So we measured that all so we could prove it and prove it to ourselves and feel good about it, right? And then I know this is kind of like this is kind of in the world of saving the world, this is the hybrid car, but obviously there's use cases for paper where you can't get away from it. There is the Forest Stewardship Council, which is a organization that certifies it's an independent organization, nonprofit, that it protects the forest and where paper comes from. And obviously as an organization, you can go to them if you made paper, and they can. So it's kind of the buying organic of the paper world, or this was, it came from a place, or it was or brought from a place that they're being careful and making sustainable choices about their paper. So if you have to use paper, use FSC certified paper. It's right there on it, and you can see it. So again, sort of a half measure, but also it's better to do that than not. And then lastly, this is maybe a difficult one, but one I have practiced for a long time, both independently and as a person and as an organization, which is I ask other organizations to stop. This is mainly, I know I don't go to them and yell at them for sending me a check. That would be bad business. But I do ask them to stop when it comes to spamming us with catalogs and things like that. We make donations as an organization. I make donations personally. I obviously shop online, and you know what that happens, right? Your information gets sold and sold and sold and sold and sold, and given to people, and they'll just start to, send you mailers and flyers and statements. And I actually find a lot of nonprofit organizations are kind of the worst at this. They'll buy lists of people, and they'll just start sending you big, thick paper reams of things, trying to get you to donate or to be part of their organization. So we, as an organization, me as a person, we actually ask them to stop. We contact them and we say, please put me on your do not mail list. Please stop sending this paper stuff to me. This is not the way I want to be communicated with. And it kind of works. I would say some organizations are better than others. Some organizations don't listen. There doesn't seem to be a regulatory body that can go after them, but it does work. Like, I have gone from having 20 years of, having done this personally and every catalog I get, I go to the organization, I fill out the form, please put me on. It's reduced the amount of mail I get down to almost nothing, which is part of what I was doing. And at the organization, we do it with other organizations that are spamming us, and then we ask them to stop nicely, but maybe not nicely after the third or fourth time. So something else to kind of move it forward is not just doing it for yourself, but to embrace it and to tell people to also stop doing it. All right, let's talk about some tools and software you can use, some things you might want to do. Going backwards and forwards. All right, so I would say the first thing to do, if you really want to sort of, take a step out the box, you can do this as an organization, you can do this as an individual. This is get e-delivery going, right? What is e-delivery? E-delivery is getting all your statements electronically. I will tell you, every organization has this now except for one, and I publicly shame them every quarter. I go after them on Twitter because they still don't do it in 2022. It just drives me crazy. But go into those organizations, logging into the sites, go into State Farm, go into your cable company. Everybody has e-delivery now. Enable e-delivery. It's great. It does save them money, so maybe the savings will actually come back to you. Again, at that company that I worked for, it was about $4 per statement per account. And again, some people had like 10 accounts. The savings were huge. And it's more secure. It's easier. If you do this all year long and get all your statements electronically, I'll tell you, when you go to get your taxes and all that ready, which is now what you're doing now, it's so much easier. You just download it, throw in a folder, and then either go to your TurboTax Online or whatever. So get into e-delivery, do it as an organization. And there's a great tool here called File This. They have many others. It's a site that you sign up for, and they have a free version and a pay version. And basically, you put in all your accounts, and then they will automatically go on a weekly basis and grab your statements and folder them for you and give them to you. Basically, they sit there in a folder, an electronic folder in the Sky, cloud, or whatever. And it's so effortless. They do it all for you. You don't have to do anything. And then when you want a statement, you just go into a folder. There's the folder, and there's the statement it is. So try that. That's an actual great way to start. And the second is, this is kind of going backwards, right? So get a scanner, because part of getting paperless is getting rid of the old paper that you had, right? Not keeping them around to start fires. It's so super more secure to do that than it is to keep them out. So have a scanner. I'm a big fan of the SnapScan, the Fujitsu. I've had 2 or 3 of them. I currently have, I think, that one sitting on the desk next to me. It's probably not great for a massive organization. They have bigger ones, but really, really good. Come up with a little workflow. Basically, you scan it. They can scan up to 50 at a time. It can auto name it. It can OCR it, right? So the documents. So for old documents, it has taken me a long time to get from all the old stuff I had, but I'm down to almost nothing in terms of paper. It's all collected. It's all in the. That's what I say. Once you scan it all, get a shredder, because you don't want that paper to go out into the world. I would suggest a cross-cut shredder. Don't do the ones that do the big thing. You can actually put those together. Cross-cuts are much more secure. They're not that expensive. I think the model I have here, Fellows has $1,500 shredders, and they have $70 shredders. The one I have next to me, the 79C1 right now, that's sitting right next to me like a little robot, is great. And has worked for, I think, 10 years if you oil it once a year or something. So get a shredder. Again, as an organization, we also had a big one for the office. It's to make sure also all the paper that you do get, that you can also recycle the shredded paper. Don't put in cards and things into it. Then you're going to need some cloud storage. So I have a couple up here, right? Google Drive, you know about. Dropbox, you know about. There's tons of cloud storage options. It's almost free at this point. It's amazing how the price of cloud storage has gone down from being something so big to something so literal. But that's one way to get it to store all this stuff. And you are going to have to come up with a way to name all this stuff. I'll give you a couple hints. I think I even wrote a blog post about this at some point, but a good naming convention will save your tuchus. Because so for files, come up with the sort of, here's what I would suggest. Come up with the who, what, where, and when in the name of the file, right? So depending on where that is, usually I put when first. So, year, month, day, and then you put in the what is this, who did it, and where is it, right? So sometimes that's a statement, that's 4 digits of an account number. But if you come up with one for your organization, it'll save everybody a lot of time, right? Most people have it for receipts, but what about all the other documents you do? What about presentations? What about all this stuff? So build a nice naming convention for your organization. It can really, really, again, make everybody much more productive. There's not a lot of running around, and it'll make the storage of things much easier to find because you'll find it easier. And then lastly, document all this. Give people a place to go to look to know what to do with this stuff, right? Where do you put this thing? Where do you put that? A lot of this becomes about rolling this out. Obviously for yourself, it's not as important, but for an organization, document this and give it out to the organization electronically, please, so they can see how to do it and keep it up to date, right? So our naming convention document is probably 10 years old at this point, and it grows as we build new things, as we do stuff that need names. We put those things into that naming convention document, and then everybody who onboards goes in and looks at it, reviews it, and knows what to do, and it just makes life much easier in things. All right, so let's give you some more resources here that you can go away with. First of all, it's a little bit of a plug, but I got two plugs in here, sorry. The Arkus blog, which is at arkusinc.com. You'll see it right there, blog. We've written about 4, 5, 6 articles on paperless. I think I did one on 10 years of paperless, which I wrote almost 9 years ago. We also do a podcast, which we did back in the day. I think episode 145 was all about paperless, and we talked about it. There's a new article up, just went up this week, about rolling out paperless inside of an organization and how to do it and what to do. So there's lots of organizational and great information up there. The search engine's great. Type in paperless, you'll get all the stuff. So go to the blog on arkusinc.com. It's a little self-promotional. I will say I read this book years and years ago. It's called Paperless, the Field Guide. A lot of the stuff that we picked up and we implemented came from this, like some of the naming convention stuff, how to deal with it. You know, he talks a lot about the process. He tells you, like, he literally says, you scan, and he tells you how to do it. And you take that and you adapt it for yourself, but it's a really nice starter. And I think he, of course, has an electronic version of it. Now, you want to get off mailing lists, you go to the Data and Marketing Association, formerly the Direct Marketing Association. So they have dmachoice.org. This is a place you can sign up to get off all these lists. So this is a great place to start. If you want to do nothing else, go there right now and sign up. You can actually you can create an account and you can put in multiple accounts. I know when I had a family member pass away, we kept getting mail forever. And I spent a lot of time trying to getting her off of these lists, and it was just really, not only is it very sad to keep getting mail for someone who's deceased, but it's obviously very wasteful. And so there's a way to do that for people who have passed away or whatever. So dmachoice.org, very good. And then lastly, you want to learn about the FSC. That is at it's fsc.org, and they are the group that does the certification of paper. So those are some places you can start. You can do. I think well, we'll talk about that in a bit. All right, as part of Arkus, we're embracing the Web3 world this year. We are doing POAPs, which are proof of attendance protocol, where you can get a digital representation that you showed up today. That will come in an email either today or tomorrow. So when you get that and you see this thing to claim a POAP, if you know what that's about, great, it's great. You can put it in your kind of digital wallet. Again, paperless, very paperless, right? We don't send people things to hang around their neck. So this is great. If you don't know what that is, actually on the blog, we've written a bunch about it. It's a cool new way to collect your where you've been, what you've done. So for attending this, you will get a POAP, and you'll be able to put that into your wallet. Again, tons of information on our website if you want to check that out. It's kind of something we're embracing this year. And if you want to learn more about us or get more information about Arkus, we have a monthly newsletter, which right now will get posted into the question or answer, and you can subscribe to that. I will tell you, we are very responsible. We send out once per month, that's it. And if you just sign up for that, we're not going to send you anything else. You want to sign up for our events, you can sign up for that. If you want to sign up for anything you want to send you, we'll do that. But if you just want to get this once a month, we put just one thing once a month. It's very reasonable. It's a nice letter, and you get to see if we're doing an event or if we're doing or what we post about. So we'll send that to you. And then that is the end of that. That is me being done. So I'm now gonna open up and see if there is a, okay. Look at this, if you have a question, I would say putting it into the questions, there's a way to post a question. If you don't have a question, that's okay. I've given you a lot of information. Justin's asked me questions about himself, which is nice. It was actually for his story. Yes, it was his father's old printer that we brought into Arkus in 2010, and that printer must have been 10 years old. So that printer that's still sitting in the office, totally unplugged now, has not been plugged in for months or years, is going on at least 20 years. It's been there for a long time. All right, well, I'm not getting a lot of questions. I hope that's okay. Maybe I've answered everything and you feel very much more paperless. Again, you can, engage with us online. We have a website, obviously. We have a Twitter. You can follow me on, I'm Jason M. Atwood on Twitter. If you want to talk paperless, I talk it all day long. I'm pretty passionate about it. All right, and with that, I will say thank you, and I really appreciate you coming. Remember, fill out that survey. If you fill out that survey, for everybody fills it out, you will increase the donation that we make to the Food Network. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for us. I think it's 2 questions. It's really super easy, and if you fill that out, that would be great for us. And then, not the same survey, I will just put up my poll here, where if you have not left yet, you can give me a 1 to 5. Tell me what you want. How'd you like it? Did you learn something? Give me a little feedback. And this is not the survey for the Lunch and Learn, by the way. That's separate, but we will also send up a follow-up email with the survey, and including the POAP that you can claim and put into your wallet. And if none of that makes sense, head to our website. We have about 10 articles on it, or maybe 3 or 4. So anyway, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. And I will talk to you maybe at our next Lunch and Learn. Until then, go forward and be paperless.